Thank you, Akila. I'm going to share my screen. So today my talk is going to focus on the Syrian regime apparatus for systemic torture. Um, this research was conducted during my postdoc at UC Berkeley School of Social Welfare. So a bit on the background on the Syrian crisis. It has started in March 2011. Currently, there's approximately 6.6 million IDPs and 5.6 million Syrians who are refugees in surrounding countries, such as Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, Iraq, and Egypt, and beyond, of course, Europe, including 1.9 million children. In Jordan, where the study was conducted, approximately 1.4 million Syrians reside in Jordan. And that accounts for 20% of Jordan's population. 80,000 have resided in Zatari, the largest refugee camp in northern Jordan, and over 70% of Syrian refugees reside in urban areas outside the refugee camps. 30% and above are living in extreme poverty. The objectives of the study was to explore the extreme traumatic experiences of Syrian refugees, survivors of torture, before escaping to Jordan, and to explore the impacts of captivity and torture they endured on their health and mental health, and to explore other impacts on survivors. The study was conducted during the period when the Free Syrian Army or the rebel groups and regime were fighting in Syria. This was before ISIS entered the equation. I collected the data myself in Jordan from May until June 2014. Of course, I stayed there for a longer period to do other research projects, but today I'm gonna only share with you this portion of the project. So it's a bigger project, and this was only part of it. I conducted in-depth interviews in Arabic, of course, with survivors of torture. The criteria was that they would be 19 years of age and above. They need to live in the host communities of Jordan in the urban areas, not in refugee camps. And the participation was voluntary. I did not ask for written consent, but they needed to provide verbal consent to enable a safe and secure space for them to expose their experiences. I did not provide any intensives, and the study was approved by the Committee for the Protection of Human Subjects at UC Berkeley. The setting, where did I meet these survivors? I interviewed them at NGOs, local NGOs in Jordan, or some of them, according to their preferences, they preferred to meet at their homes or in public spaces such as coffee shops or restaurants with as much as possible quietness. The length of the interviews took between 1 hour and a half until 4 hours. One exceptional interview took 6.5 hours. The total amount of talking, it was more than that because we sat together, we talked, and then we started the interview. So yeah, this was like 8 hours meeting. The process. After I did the interviews and went back to the US, I collaborated with groups, with few students, a team that was created. This team has done a translation, transcription, of the interviews from the voice Arabic to written English. This was a very long process of translation transcription. It took us 2.5 years because the students would translate and transcribe. I would edit and listen to all the tapes. Um, of course, two students started the work and then dropped out. Four other students were recruited with native Arabic speakers. And I did monthly meetings to supervise the work and to make sure that students are taking care of themselves, because these contents of torture are extremely traumatizing, and I was also scared for the students to be secondary traumatized. Um, we also did a collaborative analysis with the whole team. Everybody would analyze the text by themselves independently, individually, and then we would meet each week and analyze it together and finalize the analysis after discussion. So the analysis was according to the narrative approach. Um, I also asked the students to keep their reflections and their personal journey in their own interview journals, just to keep a process, a track on the process they're doing. The interviews were conducted with 6 men and 3 women, total of 9 people. Average age 31 years old. The majority were single, and then married, and then divorced. The average of number of children was 1.66, and the majority had some or graduated from universities. Originally, they were from Damascus, Daraa, Homs, and Muaddamiyah. All described their economic status as low and very low. Of course, because they were very proud, this information on their economic status was very hard to gain. The narrative analysis produced the following. We reached to major repetitive themes, and we divided them into three experience phases. We detected that there was a phase of before they were captivated, so pre-captivity, during captivity, and post-captivity. The during captivity was so traumatizing. That's why it's in red. Also, for you to be to alert you of the content. It was also divided into two different phases or two different conditions. Captivity was first in the environmental conditions during captivity, which was traumatizing by itself, and the torture methods that were used during torture. We also examined the impacts on their health and mental health, and we also discovered that there were also impacts on their interpersonal relationships that I will discuss further on. In the pre-captivity, they declared that the Syrian regime has a thorough investigation on participants' personal and professional lives, in addition to their involvement in the revolution, their work, family members, everything. He knew everything about them. One of the men said, they said you are wanted on the basis of matters 1, 2, 3, 4. There is an order to turn you in. A woman they said, you are going to give us all these details. You are an activist. We heard you're an activist, a journalist, and you're reporting everything that happens here to the channels. So these, I'm gonna provide codes to whatever I'm gonna suggest in this presentation to give you an idea why we concluded these conclusions. They also talked about the locations. So survivors were taken from their homes or from demonstrations or from mosques, or surprisingly kidnapped while they were walking in the street or walking to their work. Woman one said, I was surprised that my house got sieged. I went to open the door and I was shocked seeing the Russian guns were armed and the guns were aimed at me. Man 2 said, we became chased at every moment, even in our homes that we were living in. The group of guys and I who were active, he meant activists, we weren't able to sleep there anymore, so they were anxious. Man 7, anyone, regardless of their involvement in the revolution, he meant, people were disappearing from the left and right randomly. I was going to work, and then he was kidnapped and brought to prison, to the dungeons. Pre-captivity also included false accusation. The Syrian regime built a case for participants' arrests, which included threats to them or their family members, or repetitive requests to sign the false accusations. Manfora said they came saying, Where are the explosives you make? You have an explosives factory. And in my whole life, I don't know what explosives are. I haven't held a weapon in my whole life. Man once said, if I'm not guilty, I have to get them the accused. They said, you're going to talk. You had a lot of connections. Woman 9 said they accused us of knowing armed gangs, that we provide medicine and weapons to these armed gangs, and that wasn't true. So these quotes demonstrate the false accusations. Pre-captivity also included how they were caught. So being caught was always described as a vague act invoking anxiety. They were kept in the darkness of not knowing until they reached the detention facility. An example is brought by woman number 8. They knew all the small details on each one of us because they had told us these details while they eye-folded us and handcuffed us behind the back with this plastic thing, beating and cursing us and yelling all these accusations at each one of us. They took us in a van with many other people, driving us to an unknown place. I felt my nose was bleeding, but I couldn't see anything. So this kind of reporting or witnessing was repetitive about not knowing, feeling very anxious, and got beaten, being eye-folded and handcuffed. Another phase in the pre-captivity was reaching the facility and welcoming party. They called it welcoming party. They were subjected to welcome party beatings upon arrival to the detention facility. Woman 9 said they took our cell phones away. Woman 8 said they took us down from the van to a facility and asked us to undress and took all of our belongings. Man 5, they call it a welcoming party when they have new prisoners coming and they come down on them like crazy with beating and beating and beating. And you can't see anything because your eyes are folded and they hit wherever they can with anything they have in their hands. So the brutality of the welcoming party. Then in captivity, I will talk about the environmental condition, which is the first one. The environmental conditions of detention facilities included poor hygiene, crowding, extreme temperatures, very cold or very hot, starvation, and limited medical care, among a few. There's so many other environmental conditions. Man 4, said they lined us up and everyone is naked, everything exposed. I told him I want my medicine and he didn't agree to give it to me. He meant the guard. I knew it was with him. He showed it to me. Man 2 said we were about exactly 45 people in a room of 30 square meters. It's impossible for a person to sleep in it. The food was very bad. It was very dirty. So how they slept was that they have done shifts whilst half of the people in the cell were standing, the other half were sleeping, and then they rotated the sleeping. Woman 1, I stayed for 3 days staying in a room. My God, May God prevent you from seeing such image filled with lice. And this woman was pregnant. Captivity. Transition between branches. After detainees spent some time in one branch, the regime would transfer them to a different branch. We assumed that this was part of their systemic mechanism to confuse the detainees. So Manfor said at the military court, they either transfer someone to another prison or sentence them to execution. That's how a military court was. Man 6 said, on the way to Damascus, they transferred me from Dera to Damascus. We thought we were going to the court and then home. We said, oh, sir, we are going home. And they said, where are you going? To which home? Sarcastically. Oh, yes, to the court of death. So the guard actually reassured them that they are not going home anymore. The other phase inside the captivity is the torture methods. So torture methods encompassed interrogations, beatings, whips, electric shocks, nail pulling, burning with cigarettes, drowning, suffocation, applying heated metal to genitals and anal regions, rape, solitary confinement, sleep deprivation, and witnessing others killing, torture, and sexual assaults, and threatening to torture and or sexually assault detainees' family members. They use different terminologies to these methods. There's the dulab, tire, suspending by a tire and beating with sticks. There's tashbih, hanging from the ceiling. Fala'a, beating the soles of their feet while strapping them to a table. And bsat al-rih, the flying carpet, strapping the victim to a piece of foldable wood and folding the victim within the wooden panel by applying electricity shocks. These are only among a few of the torture methods, yes? The slide presentation cannot contain all of it, and I don't want also to expose you to all of it. Torture methods. Also, woman 9 said, I have been through a lot of agony. My daughter was subjected to rape over there and to beatings. The mother and daughter were detained together. I kneeled at the feet of the deputy and told him, I will kiss your feet, take what you want from me, but not my daughter. Don't hurt my daughter. I swear she has nothing to do with this. She was beaten a lot and was humiliated a lot. Post captivity, this was the last phase, and it contains the release from captivity. In many cases, they described bribery, which was involved, and detainees would react to the court. And detainees would reach to the court, and from there get released home. Man 2 said I was detained for 11 days, and I accidentally got out of there. And man 4 said I entered to see the judge. He asked, "Did you carry weapons?" "No," he answered. "Did you do such and such?" "No." "Are you sick?" I told him yes. The police came and told me I'm free. He removed the handcuffs and they took me, handed me over to my dad outside. They were very happy because the police took money. That's how they treated me. They all treated me like this because of the money, all because of bribe. So there's corruption. Escape and continued threat. Many were threatened, watched, and targeted even after being released, and therefore they were forced to escape to Jordan. They were forced to leave Syria. Woman 9 said, "You are wanted. They might come back and try to imprison you again." So there was a tangible threat to being tortured again. Woman 1 said, "I only was at home for 10 days, and the regime, got back and sieged the house again, and they asked for me. They said, you are still wanted." Man 2 said, "The activists of the Syrian revolution in Jordan have an eye on them, are being watched. They keep a very, very close watch on us." Man 6 said, after 2 months of getting out, my dad told me, take one of the cars and leave to Jordan until things calm down a bit, until the eyes are away from you. He was being watched. Part of the post captivity was that detainees became activists in a different way. Though they were outside Syria, they remained active. Many felt the urge to get revenge and became involved in the armed revolution. However, others preferred to get involved with humanitarian and nonviolent activism. Yes, so it was diversified. Man too said, I worked for 3 months in relief. One of them was the last month of Ramadan in 2013. In the month of Ramadan, I distributed 3,000 food baskets through the activism effort of our group, which didn't exceed more than 10 people. Man 6 said, this is my friend who we went out together, fought together, and lived together. How am I supposed to not have a grudge? This man lost his friend who was tortured with him in the facility. So he was very angry. Woman 2, I will be starting to work soon with a company covering issues related to Syria. I will be continuing my activism from a different angle now, and not the way I used to be active while I was in Syria. She is becoming a journalist after she was involved in smuggling weapons while she was in Syria. The impacts. So, torture survivors suffered from short term acute injuries involving bleeding, bruises, swelling, and fractures, as well as long term physical consequences of chronic pain and disability. Man 5 said, I still suffer from my knees because of all the beatings. Woman 8 said, I still can't complete a whole meal without feeling pain in my stomach. I have to eat in small portions, but sometimes I get excited and I want to eat everything, and then I suffer. The doctor, told me that I had a severe damage to my uterus and abdominal organs regions that I would need some surgeries that might prevent me from having children. This was, of course, um, exposed to me with tears, and I was crying too during this interview. Woman 1, I had the surgery here, and they removed 3 masses from my spine so I can walk. This woman had 5 children to take care of, and she couldn't walk. She was crawling because of the masses she had in her spine. There were also impacts to their mental health. Survivors of torture suffered from elevated rates of post-traumatic stress disorder or complex PTSD, if we want to talk, in professional language. Hyperarousal depression, anxiety, mood changes, insomnia, dissociation a lot, and emotional distress impacting their professional and academic performances. Man 6 said, these are the things that I remember on a daily basis. They don't get out of my mind. So rumination, at all, not at all. My mind is not with me. I'm not focused. I swear studying won't work for me. At all, not. Woman once said, my psychic was tired. At night I would be sleeping and then wake up frightened. I would still feel as if I was at the detention when I slept, as if nothing has changed. So reliving the detention, reliving the torture, the captivity. Others also talked about interpersonal relationships and the impacts on that area. Mental health issues strained the interpersonal relationships of torture survivors. They were at greater risk for impaired marital relations, decreased sexual satisfaction, anger management issues, attachment anxiety and avoidance, and they were engaged in intimate partner violence. Some of them were aggressive. This does not apply to everyone, but to some. Each would have different impacts on their relationship, interpersonal relationships. Man 6 said, my nervousness, anger increased a lot here in Jordan to an extent, to a level that if I am annoyed from someone, I can kill, beat them with my hands. Man 3 said, I might fall in love, but to get married, I don't know. I don't know if I can. So he was questioning his ability to be committed to another person. Man, for my wife stayed here for a month. I tried to create a good atmosphere and make her happy, but she wasn't here. She didn't care. She stayed like this for a month until one day we got into a big fight and there was hitting. So there was aggression, intimate partner violence. Conclusions. Our conclusions from this study. Torture of Syrian citizens does not only include the action of captivity. Torture by the Syrian regime is a process of systematic mechanism that commenced before captivity and continued for years after release. Torture has multiple implications for the health and mental health of survivors and their families. Intervention agencies, host countries, policymakers, and the international community must advocate for implementing a firm statement of no tolerance to torture at all costs and persecute all parties that were involved in the suffering and extreme traumatic experiences of survivors. We all thank all Syrian survivors of torture in the study who allowed us a peek into their anguished souls, and to all NGOs working with Syrian refugees in Jordan for their generous cooperation in the study, the Jordanian Women's Union and Matter Center. This study was funded by the Max Center on Mental Health and Social Conflict at the School of Social Welfare at University of California and partially funded by a grant from the Al Falah program of the Center for Middle Eastern Study, also at UC Berkeley. Thank you for listening. I will stop the share.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. That was amazing. Now we have, you guys can ask any questions if you have any, and then after that, we'll be moving on to track B. So if you guys have any questions, you can put it in the chat if you want, or send it directly to me or Akila.
Okay. Do you mind if we just ask directly, or do you prefer over the chat?
Whatever Dr. Niveen wants.
I love the Middle Eastern way, so talk to me.
Okay.
It's faster.
Okay, so yeah, I'll start. So I mean, thank you for sharing. It's such difficult material to hear and think about. I have kind of two questions. One is we had a workshop on publications. We talked about different publications and ways of sharing information, and trying to open the idea of outside of academia. So what, in terms of, I mean, this is very important information, and you want to get it out there. And the problem with academic publications is only a few people read it if you get it published. And so, what's your idea in terms of sharing this information? Are you going to the traditional media? Are you going to human rights groups? Is it more of a report? Like, what's deliverable? And my second question is it very difficult cases to interview and find people to interview? It's a small group of people. Was it just a limitation of access in terms of the only 9 people, or was it you felt you had enough information?
In regards to your first question, we're intending to publish it in academic journals. My recent tendencies, like in the last 2 years, is to only publish in open access journals so that everyone can download it and read it. So it's accessible to everyone. I want it in academic places so that people can read it, cite it, use it, and respect it in a way that if I just would write it in a blog, I don't want this information to be underestimated. These people deserve that their voices get heard and acknowledged and respected because the experiences are like beyond like understanding. In regards to your second question, not on of course open access publication costs money, so yes, it's worth it for them and bureaucracy with the universities. Your second one was if I had enough information. I was in Jordan for 3 months, and I had no intention of interviewing victims of torture at the beginning. it was accidentally when I started interviewing people that women were starting to talk about their husbands being tortured, and now they hear voices, they see things they can't see, they have visions, you know, in the religion, like visions from the Quran, visions from this. So I was listening to that, listening deeply, and then I decided to interview people. So I started asking, where can I interview such people? And I traveled a lot from north to south of Jordan to get these interviews. But after I interviewed these chunks of people, I said enough, because it was impacting me already. I was walking in the street, like looking around. The secondary traumatization from hearing all these interviews in an intensity that I have been doing for 3 months, it was you know, coming back to me. So I said, it's enough. The torture methods are repetitive. I felt that while I was sitting there, okay, I heard that before, I understand. I didn't dig any more deeper into the methods themselves to not expose myself, but I was digging more into the impacts and what they are doing, how they are resilient, how positive, or what positive things they can take or understand about life, you know, something optimistic, something to give hope, so that I will close the interview in a nice way. Hope this answers.
Right. No, thank you for that.
We actually have a question in the chat too. It says, how do you go about doing this incredibly important work of collecting stories and experiences of survivors of torture while not wanting to re-traumatize them? Did you find that giving them a space to tell their stories was helpful for them?
Yes, if I would have ever felt that I am re-traumatizing them, I wouldn't have continued that. I worked with trauma for years. I worked with sexual violence survivors, with women in prostitution, men in prostitution. So I was familiar with the traumatization and complex trauma. So I was also trained in doing such interviews, but I wasn't trained enough to do refugee work and to do torture. If you want to do such work, you need to have extra training. You need to know how to do it, to do the investigation ahead of time. And I did not, unfortunately. So I went there with my own professional background and trainings, and I used these skills to do that. I felt that they wanted to talk to me. They really needed someone to listen to them. Nobody wanted to listen to them. These are two extreme experiences to share with anyone who is close, close member, like family member, close friend. So like I had an interview with 4.5 hours, and then an interview 6.5 hours. The 4.5 hours was conducted like in 2 different days. Even we continued because it was like icebreaker for 2.5 hours, and then another 2 hours about the torture after 3-4 days. So they really wanted to talk. They felt relieved talking, and of course they hugged me and said thank you and everything, and they were grateful at the end of the interview, with these survivors of torture. But with other interviews that I've conducted with refugees in general, not torture, I will give you a story that one day I reached to an NGO. I just started interviewing people the first week, but then the second week that I came to the NGO to continue interviewing, I saw a huge line waiting, and I thought they were distributing some food or gifts or giving something. And I asked the women standing, "Are you waiting for something? Is there any party?" And she said, "No, no, no, we're waiting for the doctora." Doctora in Arabic is like the doctor. And I said, "Which doctora?" And she said, "They say she has big eyes and good soul, and when you talk to her, you feel good and you get relieved, and she makes you feel good." And I said, "Oh, how nice! I want to collaborate with this doctora." You know, I took my notebook and pen. I said, like, "What's her name?" And she said, "Her name is Niveen." And I was like, "No, no way! This line is waiting to be interviewed by me." So
Aw.
we divided the people into days through the whole, like a week after week, and I met everyone. I didn't want to say no to anyone. So people were in thirst of being heard. So yeah.
Yeah, that's true. What someone else is asking, what do you think would be the best way to help these victims in dealing with their trauma?
Thank you, Catherine. Um, I think we need to think of holistic solutions. I don't think that one way, or like I don't think I have, the solution to this. I think we need to collaborate between disciplines and between professionals to help these people. These people will need physical health issue, like treatment. They will need mental health treatments. They will need community support so that they are not isolated. Maybe they will need legal solutions to go and persecute the attackers. We need the war to end, politically, socially. We need the war to end. Wars are not good. Any war, not only in Syria, any war, it invades the personal, the familial, the social, the political, all aspect of, like, the body, the soul, the mind. It conquers everything and it ruins everything. So I think in order to give some response to such traumatizing events and experiences, we need to attack it from different and, like, diverse angles. And maybe we will give them some hope for a better future and to their families.
I have a question. Like, do you feel that schools should do a better job at teaching like their students about survivors of torture? Especially like I go to medical school and like I don't feel that we covered that enough in like psychology and stuff. I know it's like a very touchy topic though, so I don't know if it's like something that schools should do a better job at or if it's a hard topic to go through. Like, what's your opinion on that?
Why do you think it's a touchy topic?
I mean, it's a touchy topic. I guess there's like politics involved, and I know some people don't like to get into that when it comes to school and education, and there's a lot of, unfortunately, being politically correct has to do with it sometimes when it comes to wars and trauma and those things. So at least in my experience, whenever I try talking about what's going on in different areas, and like it's always like you have to say it a certain way so you don't offend anyone, even though at the end of the day it's more of a humanitarian issue than anything else. But I do think that it would be nice to learn more about at least the mental health and like the psychological and the neurological effects of torture, to get a better understanding of what these people are going through and stuff.
I think in general, all medical aspect, all healing, treatment, all professionals who are dealing with the physical health or the mental health, like nurses, doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers, educators, even journalists, covering. Journalists can go to the field and, like, hear the same reports, the same story, and get traumatized themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I think regardless, in this in this new world that we're having, so like exposure to the internet is so, like,
Yeah.
insanely wild. So
Mm-hmm.
I think all schools, they need to have they need to educate everyone on trauma.
Yeah.
This is the first step. In addition to that, another layer, professionals who do treatment or healing, or give medication or whatever, they need to have, like, extra training on top of that to get their students exposed and to get the students trained to what they're going to see in the field in the future.
Yeah.
In addition, research-oriented universities or institutions, the R1 institutions, they love data. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
not politically correct. They love data. They love data, and they send the students up out there, like, go do research, whatever. And undergraduate students, they don't have to do IRB, the ethical committee. So the IRB is supposed to protect the subjects and also the students or the researchers who are conducting the study. So in my opinion, the IRB needs to fix the regulations to also take care of the researchers, not only the subjects. This on one.
Right.
And in addition, the institutions, they need to create training projects, training programs for the students to prepare them before they are sending them out there.
That's true.
Students who work with me, if I have like several projects, I do training for the students because I don't count on the institution to provide that during the IRB trainings online that they're doing. We sit even on Zoom, and I go with them through like what is trauma, what is this, what is that, and I do it in chunks. It's not like one training, 2 hours and finishing. No, we do that like for a whole period, and then I teach them also self-care techniques about secondary traumatization of them as researchers, how they can take care of themselves. This is me taking responsibility over the traumatization that I'm exposing my students to when they are involved in my projects, because I deal with only trauma. So
Right.
I don't have like happy, topics to deal with. Like if they want to work with me, they're going to be exposed to trauma. So I need to take care of them a bit, or at least teach them, give them the knowledge how to take care of themselves, so that I am not worried about them.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I worry about them, but not to be like putting them at risk. So if I see something's risky, like I call the student and say like, let's stop, take a break, let's see what we can do.
Hmm. We have a question saying, Dr. Naveen, you mentioned it was often the wives who raised the issue of husbands being troubled and traumatized. I've also worked with refugees and noticed that men and boys' issues related to mental health were barely addressed. How can we change this, and how can we reach men and boys effectively in refugee communities?
Mm. I wanted to examine sexual violence, and it's what to do, but it's more among women. So that's why I targeted women at the beginning. But when you are enough time in the field, and when you become reliable and people hear about you, like they heard about me and they were waiting in the line to see me, then when I asked to meet their husbands, I wanted to go to their homes, they were welcoming. They opened the doors for me. So if the man doesn't come to the NGO or to the organization, you can walk to them. You can build a bridge. I'm for building a bridge. I don't have any issue like sitting on a pavement with a man talking and like having a cigarette. Even if I don't smoke, doesn't matter. Hold that, like have a talk, chat with them, be human with them, and then they will start talking. Is that considered a therapy session? Yes. Doesn't have to be in the white room, clean with the sofa of the psychology, like this. you know I don't like the to patronize people. I don't like the snobbish attitude. Just be a human being. Go to the field, dress in a respectable way. Doesn't have to be fancy with all these brand names, and go with your heart open and your eyes open and your ears open, and you will hear stuff.
Hmm.
If you're ready, and if you're for it, they will see it, they will feel it. It's like they have the sense. If you really want to hear it, they will give it to you. Like I would
Hmm.
go and I would sit in a train and people will start talking to me about their sexual violence experiences, and I didn't want to hear that. Like but it was all over me. Like, yeah, you can talk to me. If you have this aura of like, yes, you can talk to me, they will talk to you, even if they were men or boys. And yeah, knock on the doors. Ask for ask for people in the organizations to help you. Ask men in the organizations to help you, to open these doors for you if they are not opened by themselves.
Hmm.
This is my approach to things.
Uh,
Men and women, they need to be addressed the same. They have similar issues, uh, and they feed each other. Like when a woman's suffering, the man is also suffering. I'm a feminist and all that. Yes, I'm for women's rights, but I don't think we need to ignore men and their difficulties. We need to provide something that is for the whole family, to
right.
carry everyone.
That's true. Someone is asking, you might have said this in your presentation, but what regulatory permissions did you need to be able to conduct these interviews and subsequently publish them?
What do you mean by regulatory?
I'm not sure, maybe like things that you had to go through before you were able to like interview. She's saying IRB
Ah,
compliance.
I did 6 months of a torturing IRB process at UC Berkeley to go through every single question that I was asking there. And because of the sensitivity of this population, because of the exposure to trauma, and because of my professional experience, I'm a therapist to begin with. I'm not a researcher, so my approach is a clinician. So it was easier for me to gain the IRB approval because I provided all my experience. I gave them references that says that even though people are traumatized, they would love to talk to someone, and these kind of things. And it was a very long 50 pages of an IRB protocol.
Okay,
So yes.
thank you.
Yes. Yeah,
And
and R1 institution, you will have such long
yeah.
protocols.
Someone's asking, she's saying that I worked with Syrian refugees in Turkey for over a year, and I remember feeling very helpless when seeing and hearing all the stories. This is what led me to train as a counselor. You mentioned a holistic approach is best, which is so true. But if this is not possible, do you think short-term or long-term counseling therapy can help, even if only slightly?
Yes, I think even if they participate in a research like mine and they only get interview, and you are empathetic to them and you listen to them and you cry with them and you hold their hands and you hug them at the end of it, I think it holds something very healing in it.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the person standing in front of them, even if you don't think it's helpful, but it is. And even if I um, after interviewing one of the women who lost her tooth, she fell while she was escaping the war. She lost her tooth, and I was sitting with friends after this interview, and I said, like, I wish the dental care in Jordan was not private. La 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 la. I was like, just talking about that, and they said, like, why are you disturbed from that? And I said, like, there's a woman I interviewed that didn't say her name, anything. Like, she lost her tooth, and she's like scared to smile because
Oh.
of like the tooth. And I like feel helpless. I can't, like, I can't do anything. And then one of the people sitting on the table, he said, like, I have a friend who's a dentist, and we can arrange for her to go and fix her tooth for free. Do you want that? I said yes. And but I don't want to be involved. I don't want her to know that it's coming because of me. So I will connect your friend with the organization, and you arrange for the woman to go. And just tell the staff member who's there that I am like related to that, just to let me know how the woman is feeling after that. So the woman, like, she called me after the dentist finished, and she said the woman was smiling and she was
Oh.
saying, Nushkur Allah, Alhamdulillah, thank God for everything and all that. And I was like, I was in tears. It's beyond, so yes, yes. So you can talk about it. Don't mention the names of the people. Don't humiliate them. Keep them, yeah, thank you. Respect them, and if someone can contribute or donate, yes. Um, I found someone to buy a refrigerator for another lady, and it was helpful. Not to have a fridge. It's insane in Jordan in the summer. Like,
I have
so
a
yeah.
question. I just thought about this. Like, have you been able, so I'm assuming that you've seen different people going through different types of torture throughout your career and stuff. So like, have you noticed like similarities in the way that people act after certain type of torture, or has it always been different to each person?
In what way, if they react differently?
I guess like the impact on their like mental health and like have you noticed similarities in the way that they act, or has it always been like different? Do you have to treat each person like differently?
I treat people that I talk to personally. Like,
Okay.
I see how they are, and I go with them. what they want to tell me, how they are interacting with me. Some of them were aggressive, some of them were soft, some of them were very welcoming. So I would interact with them, I would be me with the humanity that I bring, but then I would adjust. Like with one of the women, she felt hungry during the interview. So I said, like, what would you like to eat? And she said, falafel. And I ordered falafel for her and I paid for it. And we sat and we were eating falafel. And then she was like, she couldn't continue the falafel. And I didn't understand what was happening. And I said, your falafel not good? Do you want me to replace it, to bring you something else? I was, like, why? She was hungry. What happened?
Yeah.
And she said, I can't continue eating because I have these issues with my stomach because of this torture. So I said, you want something else? Can I bring you something else to help with the stomach? And she said, no, I will continue with small bites. So I got it. Yes.
Yeah.
Other interviews with men, because I'm a woman and it was different women than men, so you need to be careful with that. Men were like becoming, because they expose themselves so much, they wanted to have something on me, like, are you married, do you have children, where do you live? Like, they wanted information because they gave so much information.
Yeah.
So I would go with them. Yes, I would go with them. I will say, yes, I'm like, I was single, I'm like this and that. I will answer their questions just to make them feel reassured. I'm not in a, I'm not in the clinic. They're not my patients. So it's different. It's research. So it was the limits, the boundaries are obvious, and you need to be clear and like interact in a neat way and respectable way also with them. And they wanted to add me to the Facebook. Okay, I said, add me to the Facebook. No problem. I will accept that. Different kind of things that they are like, they're pushing the boundaries. They're like testing me, and I was comfortable. I'm like,
Yeah.
if you as a professional is not comfortable, they will see it and they will test it. But the moment they like tested me and I stood in the test, then it wasn't an issue, because there's also transference and counter-transference in research, and you need to take, like, you need to be attentive to that as well. And like, if one man wanted to accompany me to the taxi until I will like be in the taxi. And I said, like, okay, you can come with me. Like, I would appreciate your help, like showing me where the taxi station is. And it was suffocating because I was with him like for 3 hours. I wanted off, I was like, leave me alone. I want to ruminate on that, like by
Yeah.
myself. I don't need to come, but it was his need.
Yeah.
And I understood that. So I was flexible. So be flexible, be open, try to understand the other side. They have gone through a lot. They don't need to deal with me. I'm just a tool for them to 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 throw their stories on. And I need
That's
to
true.
hold that and deliver it to the eyes of the public like the way they wanted me to do.
Right.
So yeah, so I protected myself, protecting them with a limit of respect.
Okay. And someone's asking, what would be the best way to contact you to discuss
Email
this
me.
further? Email you.
Email me and I will schedule a meeting with you. Anyone who wants to see me, to meet me, I'm open. This is the kind of person, whatever email reaches my, whomever reaches my email, I respond, I meet. Or, yeah, I think, yeah, we need to bridge the academia and the field and people who are interested more. My pleasure. My pleasure.
I have a question for you. I found it interesting. You were saying that you come with a clinical background, right? And so you're not in research, and that's kind of where I find myself. And did you find it difficult to not provide psychoeducation while interviewing? I feel like when they're talking, you mentioned that, in Islam, we're like, oh, we're hearing voices, and that's very stigmatized. To not provide like that little bit of education of no, 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 like this is what's actually happening.
No. Um, I'm a clinician, and in this last 7 years, I became researcher. So I combine them both. I'm also this and also that. It's not either or, like it's and. So I celebrate these polarities. Um, but when someone comes to me and they say, I hear voices, it's from the Quran, it's from, I don't know, even though I'm not Muslim, maybe because I'm not Muslim, I'm not sensitive to this. I just go with the person. I believe that. Yes, maybe it is from the Quran. Who am I to say it is not? Yes, who am I to educate them? If I felt it was risky, yeah, it was risk for self-harm or risk to others, then I would intervene in a way and ask if they want professional help, if they want me to refer them to someone. But I would not start a session of educating them. It would, like, it would feel to me as patronizing them. Now, I don't want to create such atmosphere in the middle of the interview or encounter with them. So if he feels and hears that, I would like say, like, is he aggressive? Does the voices, like, overcome him? Like, I would go with that talk. I would not stop it and say, no, this is not true. No, I would like say, what are the consequences of the talks? Does he like curse at you? Does he become aggressive? Does he hit the children? Because if you say, does he hit you? She would say, no, 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 he's okay. Then I would threaten her. I don't want to threaten her. So I would go like, does he say anything to the kids? Like someone else, not her. It's not an immediate threat to her. So this is the way I do it, like softly, I overcome educating, attacking the person, and making them feel smaller because I came to learn from them. So I don't want to educate them. If they want it, I will. But they didn't ask for it. They wanted just to, like, pour the situation on. In cases there was a self-harm, I would say that. I think there's like, if he's harming the kids, would you like me to refer you? Would you like help? And they would say yes, because it was authentic and it was out of, concern, not out of anxiety. And they know the difference. They would feel it.
Thank you. And then one last question from my end was, this was such a heavy topic, and it took you a long time to kind of write all this out and get through it. I wanted to know, and it sounds like people in this group right now are trying to do similar work. So can you talk a little bit about your self-care and what was important for you and how you found, kind of the tricks and techniques that work for you?
Yes. With pleasure. I could not touch these materials for years. And then I understood I can't do it all by myself. Um, I put my control freak, put it on the side, and I said, like, it doesn't belong to me. Like there's a saying of Gibran Khalil Gibran that they say, your children are not your children anymore. So my interviews are not my interviews anymore. These are their interviews. These are their voices. I need to do the work and deliver it. I don't care if I'm not able to touch it. I need to be able to touch it. So how do I tackle that? So then I recruited a team, and thankfully, I'm so grateful to this team. Because of this team, I forced myself to edit the interviews. They did the translation and transcription, and they sent it to me, and I promised to edit it and to add the cues that were in the interviews that they will never be able to fill it in because I was there interviewing. So I filled it like woman crying, her husband came, children came, I don't know what, like whatever. So I filled in these and I went through every single word in these interviews and I edited and I left it in track changes so that my team will see the changes that I was making. And then and analyzing these materials together and as a team, it was very helpful to me to also to process it and to understand it better and go to deeper and to get in contact with these materials. Now, I will not lie to you, dealing with torture is a very, very hard task. And because I'm a clinician already, so my defense mechanisms are sophisticated. They're playing with me, yes? And I'm aware of that. And I don't have dreams on torture. Yes, this would be like simple. Like when I was young, yes, I would dream about like women in prostitution talking to me, please help me, please help me. But when now, like I'm like more like I've grown up, I'm like in my 40s, so I'm not in my 20s anymore. So so yes, so my defense mechanisms are playing with me. So I have a daughter, And during the editing of these interviews, I would see visions while I was awake. It wasn't during my sleep. I would see like visions of my daughter like falling or a car hitting her in front of my eyes where she was playing near me. And I would know that this is an impact of these interviews, that I get scared that my family will be harmed, like their families and themselves. Um, so yes, I would be anxious, of course, like to see these visions. I'm human. I would tell I tried to tell my husband once, and he freaked out. So I decided I'm not going to share this with him. he's gonna he's gonna be like, don't do this torture thing. Like, I don't want you to do this work. Blah, blah. You know, he will get anxious. So I told him once and stopped telling him. I have a friend, my best friend. She's a social worker. She heard stuff. She used to work with domestic violence. So trauma is not like something that is new to her. So I shared these visions with her. And she said, maybe you take a break from these edits. Maybe you go on vacation. Maybe you do this. And yes, I did, because all of my work is trauma, but this is extreme trauma. So I left the torture for a bit. I did something in Lebanon on COVID-19, and I would revisit torture here and there, and I would have like, breaks in between. I walk in nature. I like walking. I practice grateful mindfulness, just to feel my body, to feel myself, and to be grateful for being able to breathe, to being able to read, to being able, like the simple things in life, just to alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, to be able to say that. Um, I cook. I love cooking. I feed. I love feeding. I send my friend who listened to these visions, the social worker. I send her a dish, so thank you, kind of, for hearing me out. These simple things that are healing. Some people, they like to pray. I think because I'm not too religious, I pray in my being grateful for life and this spirituality kind of thing. So um, walking, dancing. I put music and I jump with my daughter, especially with COVID-19. It was like quarantining and like doing torture at the same time. It was like insane. So we would like put music in different languages, sometimes Turkish, sometimes Greek, sometimes like you don't need to understand it, just feel the music, get these toxications out of your body, eat good food. At some point, I tracked my sleeping. So track your sleeping. Make sure you're sleeping enough hours. Make sure you see enough of the sun. Sun is good for us in so many different ways. I started doing, eating healthier, like adding coconut oil, adding kale smoothies. I don't know, like stuff that I'm not used to in the Middle East. I'm pure Middle Eastern. Like, what can you do? Like, and kale, we don't have kale, but I added it. Like, I just try new things, and like be happy. And in my mind, I like finding meaning to this work. What is the purpose? Why do I do this? Why do I do this? Why is it important? How these people are, like, I have commitment to these people to deliver their voices to the world. So continue, persist, insist, but take good care of yourself. Remind yourself of the goal at the end and the meaningful, and try find it. Like, actively be optimistic. Actively, like force yourself to be optimistic. Force yourself to smile. Stand in front of the mirror and smile in the morning. Yes, this is going to be a great day. This is going to be like, a good day. People are gonna call, or people are gonna respond. I'm gonna make a change. I'm a worthy person. These voices are worthy to be, published. Let's do it. Come on, like, Tony Robbins, like hearing stuff that motivates you, hearing things that like makes you makes you a good person and believe in you and what you do.
I think all those points are so good, especially for everyone sitting here who wants to do similar work to you. We can all relate to that. And you know, we all need that motivation, self-motivation, and it's great that you've mentioned that. Someone's asking, what further research is needed in the area of Syrian refugee trauma and mental health?
What else? I think that currently I switched my focus a bit from the refugees themselves, because there's also a burnout in the literature, in research from people. They get like, the war started in 2011. If the international community wanted to push it, the war would have ended long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
If someone would like be interested in ending the suffering would have ended long time ago. So I think like doing more on the mental health and physical health of refugees, for me, I'm not gonna do more, because I think I have done a good amount, and like we have a few publications going out, so it's good for now. But I think taking the Syrian crisis from a different angle would would make people hear it more. What I mean by that, yes, I have data on victims of torture. Yes, I have data on regular refugees. Yes, I deal with physical health, mental health. Yes, I deal with, so many different aspects of the Syrian crisis. But, sometimes it becomes, the people become like saturated there's a saturation of these materials. So what I do today is dealing with the ed workers who are helping the Syrian refugees. So if the international community is not, involved enough in the Middle East, then they can become involved when their children are sent to the Middle East to research traumatized populations, or to learn about traumatized populations, and then they are secondary traumatized. And this is my new study that I do today. I do it in different places, also in Europe, also in Latin America, also in the US, also in the Middle East and in Africa. And we're dealing with the secondary traumatization of staff, ed workers, volunteers, students who go and they deal with these traumatic topics, and then they come back home and they don't know what to do with themselves because they suffer from all these symptoms. Then the grandmothers, the mothers, the fathers, the grandfathers who see the student coming back with these symptoms, they would be worried, and then they will get involved, and then maybe something will be changed, like to attack the problem from a different angle. Yeah.
Yeah. I know a lot of people want to know what your email is, so do you mind do you mind dropping that in the chat for everyone?
Yes, please email me 555 at Berkeley EDU. Berkeley EDU, yes. Please email me. I'm open. I love people. Let's celebrate knowledge and sharing it, and not being stingy about it.
Yes. This was amazing, honestly. Everyone's saying thank you so much. I think it's time to wrap up the session. So thank you so much. And I guess now we can move to track B.
Yeah, there's about 15 minutes left. So if everyone would want to go join into the conversation in either track B or C, you're more than welcome to do so. Obviously, we can stick around. I don't know, Dr. Niveen, if you have to go, we technically have 15 more minutes if you would like to go.
No, my daughter is at school. She went back to school this week, so use me and abuse me, no problem. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. Whatever you want to know, if you want to ask more, if you want just to sit in silence, we can do that as well.
I actually have a question now that I thought about something. So like, I don't know what I want to pursue yet, but like one of my options is like child psychiatry. And I was just wondering, like, I know you interviewed adults, like how is the process different for children?
I'm always scared about children.
Yeah.
Because I'm good with adults. I know how to deal with the verbalization of things. And with kids, you need a lot of experience to how to have basic communication with kids.
Mm-hmm.
Not to talk about traumatic experiences yet. just to talk to children, use like theater, puppets, all these kind of things, and to see how you feel with that. If it's sometimes they don't like give you a lot of materials to work with. Sometimes they give something that you only question.
Mhm.
You have like a lot of questions about this, about that. So yeah, I think get good education, have a very good mentor to teach you how to do that, and do it. Just be, do things like ethically, in a good ethical way.
Right.
Make sure that their parents know, and make sure that they want to talk. Make sure that also with adults that you wrap the encounter in a positive way, so that you're not leaving them with something heavy that they don't know how to deal with, even if
Mhm.
they were children. Like give them a gift, or a game, or something that they can laugh, or like some a positive atmosphere that they're leaving with, so that it's not yeah. I worked with like incest survivors, and they always tell you that like social workers, they interview me with this like judgmental atmosphere, and they left me with this, and like just from hearing them talk about that, it was your heart like it squeezes, it doesn't
Right.
make you feel well, like like this
Mhm.
is a harmful intervention. You don't want to do harmful intervention, and because children are so sensitive and they're fragile, and they are also strong, but you are the adult, and you are
Yeah.
the one responsible for them, and to make it like a good encounter for them, even if they have suffered from traumatic experiences. Like draw with them, if you're good in like in the arts, like maybe develop these skills. I love like sculpturing, I love drawing, and I bring these kind of things when I used to work with children in the field.
Mhm.
But these were not as traumatized of children in like you're describing.
Right.
I just work with like neglect, not abuse, just neglect, and like drawings, and like celebrating paint on the walls and on the ground, getting messy and all that, and like, have fun with it. And if you're able to do that, and then yeah,
Yeah, that's
go
awesome.
for it.
Mhm.
Thank you very much. One thing that kind of was coming to my mind um, was I laughed when you said, you were interviewing and a gentleman asked if he could walk you to your taxi, and you were like, "Oh my God, I just want to be by myself right now." And I was wondering if you could maybe expand a little bit more on that, because I recently just went back to Pakistan, and I felt the same feeling, and I thought, well, if I ever want to do any mental health work here, I really have to get that frustration, that internal westernization that we kind of get sometimes in check. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, just as your journey with that.
It wasn't something Western yet, because I left the Middle East only 6 months, and then I came back to Jordan. This was something aggressive coming out of him, so I felt intimidated. Like I felt like also the contents of the interview with him, they had like they were like embedded with like sexual cues, and like my mind said like leave the place, leave the place. Like I know I was sitting in his home, so it was more intimidating for me as a woman, as a researcher, and like all the context. So I just wanted to go home to protect myself as a self-protection. um, but even um, even if you feel threatened, doesn't matter if you have a Western concept, or like any other atmosphere around you. Just listen to you. If you don't feel comfortable, then it's not comfortable, and you just need to deliver it according to the social and cultural codes that are appropriate at that context. So if it's in Pakistan, or in you know in any other country that is different than the country that you're living usually in, just like learn the I assume that you know the culture, and you know the social codes and all that. um, I can tell you that this person only took me to the taxi. Another participant, he wanted to come with me in the taxi. And this was and he said like his sister was waiting for him in the capital in Amman, and he wanted to go and visit her. And I was like, okay. And he said like, can I come with you? And my, natural response would be like, yes, why not? Like he's a refugee. He doesn't have the money to go. I have the money. I can take him. I'm going there anyway. And there's a taxi driver. Like he's not gonna jump on me or like do something to me in the middle of the taxi. So I said, yes, you can come. But and he sat like next to me in the taxi, and he continued talking to me, and there was a test of the boundaries in there, like, and I had like a phone call coming from my mom, so he wanted is everything okay? It's like asking me like personal stuff. So yes, it's not convenient. There's transference and counter transference that needs to be taken into account. You need to be very strong in who you are and what you do, and why are you there, and like remind yourself in these like questions, so that you can hold it all together and not to fall apart in that setting. Exactly. After they go, you can fall apart. You can go to the restroom. You can cry. You can go to the shower. Like sobbing, whatever you need to do, screaming, partying. I don't know what makes you, you know, how you vent it, get it out of your system. But at that moment, you need to hold it down. Like you need to hold yourself and to be polite, professional, and like you just remind yourself, like I'm doing this because of this and this. I'm not gonna, patronize him. I'm not gonna do this and that. And protect yourself. And if you feel that you're not protected enough, then do like actions that you will feel that you're protected. Like I don't feel comfortable doing this. Is that okay if I go alone? Or something polite, not to offend someone, that is acceptable culturally and socially. This is how I would react, even though I allowed like both of them, one to come with me in the cab and the other one to come to the cab with me. It's like, because they exposed too much and I didn't want to offend them. So this was my compromisation, and it wasn't a real risk to my well-being. So I could tolerate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but it wasn't pleasant, I can tell you.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
We have one final question. She's saying, thank you very much for such an inspiring and eye-opening presentation. I have a question regarding research methods. Can you go into more detail into the type of text analysis you did? You mentioned a narrative approach. Could you explain that approach a little bit more? Also, were the text analysis used to identify/diagnose the psychological and mental health issues discussed, or were there questions asked directly?
So in the narrative approach, the story is your main thing, your main analysis materials. With the victim, with the torture survivors, I didn't have specific questions. I didn't ask target anything. I just went with the flow. Like it was me, the clinician, curious about what happened to them, and I came with my curiosity, and I want to hear the stories. Like, what was your experience? How was life in Syria before? What happened to you? Were you tortured? Like, can you tell me more about that? Do you suffer from anything today? Like, do you feel? And you can see them, like if they were like feeling discomfort. Like I had a participant who went to the restroom like 20 times when we were interviewing. 20 times. Like, okay, like it's an elephant sitting in the room. Should we ignore it or should we ask about it? So I like you have to ask them, like, do you suffer from anything? Do you feel this? Do you want us to reschedule? Is there anything I can help? I can see that you're going a lot to the restroom. Do you have any issue? You can ask, and you will see what they answer without offending them again. So this is my style in interviewing. Like a woman will come with the kid, and I would like, would you want the child to stay in the room? Maybe it's better not to expose the child to these stories. Maybe we'll ask the staff member to come and play with the kid until we finish. You know, Just conversation, just asking their opinion, suggesting stuff, putting options, giving them the control, the power to choose. I'm not choosing for them; it's her kid. So, but I'm like, maybe she's not aware that it might affect. So I suggest. So the narrative approach is the narration. The story is the main thing. This is your material, and you check each story by itself, and you see if things are what themes are going, what themes are mentioned in the story, and then you take all the interviews and you do cross narration. You take all the narration, all the stories of everyone, and you see if there's anything that is common among everyone, if there's a theme, repetitive theme that is going on and on and on in different interviews, and if there's some differences. And the differences are also discussed. You don't only take the similarities and the repetitive things that are repeated, um, such as the aggression. The aggression towards their partners or their children it's not repetitive among everyone. Not everyone were aggressive. The women were very, very warm with their kids. No, there wasn't, and warm with their spouses. Some of them, they said that torture made their marital relationship even stronger. So yes, but do I in the interpersonal relationships, yes, they were like some were anxious, some were disattached, some were aggressive, and one of them were like feeling better in her relationship. So I would not say that this is the majority of them, but I will not disregard that. I will also take it into account. So this is how you do the text analysis. We create a code book with the themes that are repetitive that we see. Like you read the interviews and you read the interviews and you read the interviews again and again and again, and you detect themes that are repetitive, and we colored them in different colors. For instance, like the way I presented in the presentation, the yellow was the pre-captivity, the red was captivity. It was also in our code book, and the blue was post-captivity and activism. Not It wasn't a blue. The blue was impacts. The purple was the post-captivity. So this is how we colored the code book, and we colored the themes over and over in all the interviews. And then when we met, we would discuss if this is more of a mental health, more of a physical health, more of like pre-captivity, post-captivity. Where do you want us to put this? Also with the team of researchers, also a group narrative approach, like how each one of us is seeing the narration in a different way. Uh, it's There's a lot of about the narrative approach that you can read, and yes, hope this answers.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and if you have any more specific questions, you can feel free to email. I'll drop the email one more time for you guys. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time spending this time with us. It was lovely. Inshallah, have a 15-minute break, everyone, and we will see you back into the next track. Inshallah. Thank you, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for attending and hearing this tough topic.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing it with us.